let's move on to the second session. To give you some background about Luis and Suche. Luis is currently the president of the IFoA. In the course of a varied career as an actuary, software engineer, and academic, Luis was director, actuarial standards at the Financial Reporting Council, where she led the development of the technical actuarial standards. She has practiced as an independent consultant in the areas of software risk and sustainability, and has worked on financial modeling for social security and pensions reform in a number of emerging economies. She became a fellow of the Institute of Actuaries in 1987 and a fellow of IEMA in 2019. She has a degree in mathematics from the University of Cambridge and a PhD in artificial intelligence from Northwestern University. Welcome, Luis. Now, please allow me to introduce Suche. Suche is currently the immediate past president of the IFoA and a member of council of the IFoA. Suche sits on the boards of Singapore University of Social Science, Sim Kim Boon Institute of Financial Economics, LSE Trust, Singapore School of the Arts, and various boards of the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries. Suche has a first-class honor degree from the London School of Economics and a master's degree from Columbia University, New York. Good evening, Luis and Suche. Thank you for taking the time to come to our annual conference. How are you today?
I'm very good.
Very happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Perfect. And so the first topic I would like to discuss is actuaries development. In an era with increasing automation in actuarial modeling, how do you see the actuary's role changing?
I think it's a time of huge possibility, of huge potential, actually. There's a danger, I think, with the huge emphasis there is on modeling at the moment, that we become just people turning the handle to produce the model results. And that, of course, is not what models are about. Models can never give us the answers. All models can do is to help people make decisions. And if there's more automation in actually producing the models, what it means is that the non-automated parts, which are the most important parts, will become more prominent. And the way actuaries can do this is that we're not just computer programmers, we're not just numerical analysts, we're not just data analysts. We understand, or should understand, the business too, the context for which the models are being used, and a certain amount about the decisions that they're supporting. So we can help put the models in context, help to interpret their results, say what the implications are, and help provide support to the decision makers, or if we're senior, make the decisions ourselves. Because we have to remember that models are not oracles. You don't just throw data at a model and it tells you what to do. You throw data at a model, it then produces numerical results, and you have to interpret those numerical results. Models are tools, not oracles. And actuaries can be expert tool users and tool producers. And that's how I see our role evolving in this area.
Great, thank you. What about you, Suche?
I of course echo what Luis said, and that was we work very closely together in the strategy work of vision, skill sets, and mindset, and that is precisely because of this. So models and automation will take over the low value tasks, yeah, and most of robots and models are still on very narrow intelligence, yeah? But what human beings is wide intelligence, general intelligence. And of course, some of the more repetitive tasks will be taken over. So we've got to migrate to higher value one, yeah? In sort of the Moravec paradox. There are certain things which over the next 10 years, machine learning cannot duplicate, and it's quite clear, whether it's life insurance or pension. So we move into those areas where you require more judgment, and more discussions, and even with very good modeling, some of the risks we see cannot be captured by risk models, because the uncertainty is of a different order and it's not subject to modeling using statistical distribution. So a new form of thinking is required. So what we want as a profession is for us to continue to learn. Louis' theme is learning society, right? Learning new things. And adjacent to what we work in, whether it's climate risk or negative interest rate or genetics, right? Whatever which has impact on our area. And that attitude is quite important. And our base is very good, right? We work in institutions like life insurance, investment institution, pension schemes, general insurance. So we got a business anchor. So going out is actually our mindset. I don't think we need to worry too much in the next 10 years, next 5-10 years about models. They will take over repetitive tasks. So the lower level type repetitive tasks will be taken more and more over. And machines will get cleverer and cleverer. Automation will become claim processing, underwriting. So a lot of jobs will get disrupted without doubt. But therefore, we got to keep on navigating to the higher value tasks. And there will be some way off before all tasks are eliminated or all jobs. Will be some way off.
Great. Thanks, Suchay. Let's move on to climate change. What are the roles of actuaries in terms of managing climate risk? How can climate risk be modeled?
Okay, well, what a big question. So we have to think about what we mean by climate risk. Okay, there's a lot of certainties involved. We know that the climate is changing. We know that the world is heating up. That's not a risk, that's happening. So the risk comes from the implications. What does that cause? And there are all sorts of implications, societal implications. It could have, there's a risk that it could have devastating effects in many parts of the world. For people, we could see mass migration, we could see starvation, droughts, floods, all that sort of thing. But there's also the implications, the impacts on the financial and economic world. So as you know, we hope that governments are going to change their policies so that we can do something about climate change. We can stop it being so bad. That's going to mean changes in the way our economies operate through the changes in regulations and things, changes in the way the financial worlds operate, and so on. And these are all risks that are very close to the heart of actuaries. In our traditional fields, such as insurance and pensions, you're talking about long-term financial risks here. I mean, you know, that has actuarial written all over it, right? So what actuaries have to do is they have to think about these risks and how they affect, how they impact on their day-to-day work. Now that's quite difficult because it's very, very difficult to model them. We're very used to modeling things like mortality, things like insurance claims. And the reason we're used to and good at modeling those things is because essentially they're risks that happen over and over again. There's a lot of past data. We haven't had climate change before, okay? We don't have the data. It's an ongoing, a sort of chronic risk, if you like, rather than a repeated risk. So we have to learn how to do different sorts of modeling. We have to learn how to do different sorts of thinking about it. We may have to be more qualitative rather than quantitative. But we have to think in terms of the bigger systems. We've got the environmental system, the social systems, the economic and financial systems, all interacting in extremely complex ways. So we have to develop techniques for applying systems thinking concepts to these difficult problems. So it's a huge challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity. It's a huge learning opportunity for a start. We have to learn about climate risk and what it can do, but it's also a huge opportunity to extend our skills. And nobody else can do this sort of thing. Okay, we can't do it yet, but we have a huge head start because it builds on our expertise in long-term risks. So it's a huge opportunity for us to establish ourselves in this new field once in a lifetime. I mean, once in 2 or 3 lifetimes. So yeah, so challenge, yes, but fantastic opportunity.
Perfect. Thanks, Luis. What do you think, Suche?
Okay, Luis is one of the pioneers in IFoA in climate risk. But I would talk to it in slightly different ways, right? Because I agree with what she said. But if you look into our history, actuaries have a particular lens. The lens is about long term, and we deal with risk and uncertainty. And there's a difference between risk and uncertainty. Risk is something, in simple shorthand, we can capture in models. Uncertainty is a much bigger circle, a much bigger Venn diagram. Risk is something we can capture. Uncertainty is some things we can't capture. They call it radical uncertainty or naive uncertainty. And we sit, and over the last 200 years, we continue to capture uncertainty and try to solve them. And risk theory, financial economics, value at risk are ways of capturing uncertainty in a mathematical way. The world is changing to a number of reasons. One is the digital revolution, right? The digital revolution brings automation and calculation. So that's why we need to go to data science and machine learning, because that is about modernizing our mathematics to understand the world. But the world is also changing because it's assaulting through in an area called sustainability. Risk management is to make sure that our system is sustainable. And one of the big sources of uncertainty is due to radical uncertainty. It's because the world is interconnected, the world is globalized, the world is digital. A small event in China or anywhere in the world could produce cataclysmic effect or financial crisis because of network, because of globalization. So that changes the nature of risk. And therefore, because we are risk professional, we cannot just stick to predictable risk. We got to go into the area of uncertainty. And climate risk is one of the big ones, right? Because it is almost a certainty that we are flying into a disaster unless we can avert it. So we got a big role because our job is long-term. But climate risk is a manifestation of a bigger problem. Yeah, and so is biodiversity loss. It's a manifestation of bigger, and the bigger problem is the way we have been living. Our economic narrative, theories are measuring things which produces profits, but it's subtracting a lot from natural resources and the environment. We are violating a lot of planetary limits. So there's a big conversation going on. Does Gupta report and donut economics? And that goes into the foundation of economics, yeah, about whether our economic and the way we organize society produce sustainable outcomes. And IFoA is in all this conversation, climate risk, biodiversity loss, sustainability, great risk transfer, and everything is interconnected. And one of the issues is our man's relationship, human beings' relationship with nature. And that is a higher order narrative. And even in pensions debate, you can't avoid it. Our economic system is not giving the answers we want. And because IFoA have a public interest, that is quite interesting. So in Asia, Malaysia, very much in climate risk now, and Singapore and China as well. So there is something on innovation, but there's something which is going to deeper into heart. So I agree that the actual profession, because of the way we position ourselves, especially IFoA, public interest, that means we care about society. And secondly, of the long-term nature. See, no other profession talks about long-term nature the way we talk about it. Yeah? Statisticians do model and demography do models and projection, but we convert it to make sure that whatever we do operate along sound financial or economic lines. Yeah, that's the language we use. So we got a big claim, but the claim comes with a responsibility. And I think there's a group of us, or in fact, Luis, Nick Spencer, we're very concerned about it, and we are trying to encourage change, but at the same time, making our profession sustainable, right? I mean, our profession sustainable. And I think it will be, but we have to continue to make sure that it's in our foreground. So at different levels, at one level, we got to make sure we are sustainable and relevant in our workplace. But at a higher level, our workplace is actually a function of society, right? Are we giving good products? Yeah, it's a very simple question. Are we giving good products to our customers? We can't say yes all the time, right? You can't say yes all the time. So I'll leave it at that. So climate risk is an existential risk for mankind. It's very obvious if you look at all the various videos, right? And there are lots of work to do. And Luis is leading the charge in our this year's campaign, right, to COP26. So there'll be a lot of things going on with the IFoA. So it's a good place to be.
I'd just like to put in an advertisement here, is that I'll be giving a presentation on this at the IFoA's Asia conference in 2 or 3 weeks' time. So do think about registering for that conference and coming along to that presentation.
Yeah, you should come. I really think you should come, because the time is chosen so that you can come. I think it's 26th of July. I think I can't remember the exact date, but it doesn't matter. It's on the website.
Yeah.
Great. Please sign up to attend that presentation. Right. Last question. In our event last year, Suche mentioned that IFoA is trying to lead the change and promote education in data science and the use of technology in actuarial practice. What would be the latest thinking in terms of the development goals of IFoA going forward?
You go first, Suche, on this one.
Yeah, okay. The date is 28th of July. That is 28th of Wednesday. You can register. That is for the climate one where Luis is speaking. I think last year I couldn't say what I said, but this year, because there's a project called Project Moonshot, which basically talks about incorporating certain things into our syllabus in a short term. One of which is a fellowship in banking, and the other one is a certificate in sustainability/climate science, which Luis talked about. And of course, I think they're talking about enhanced certificate in data science. But they're also going to bring all this content within our syllabus in various subjects, various investments or modeling or whatever. So it's within the content. But more importantly is to make our syllabus more modular and more optional, whether at associate level or fellowship level. And I don't think that it is just about the syllabus. One thing which is we are very keen about is to inculcate the habit of learning. In other words, learning cannot be just the exams, you see. That would be the wrong mindset. Learning actually continues. I see that Clara Call is an investment actuary. Was it Duncan just now? He is M&A actuary, right? And Luis is a climate actuary, or sustainability actuary. And there are many actuaries who are systems actuaries, strategy, or strategic actuary. Last time we had product actuary, life actuary, and that goes on. But now most of us are practicing an area adjacent. So we should encourage people. Okay, there are digital actuaries, right? There's either called digital actuaries or data science actuary. That's quite common. So a lot of things are adjacent to our work. And if you look to our sustainability board's website, there are many impressive materials there. It's really up to you, right? So the syllabus, the formal syllabus, we are continuing to push to make sure that there's more choices and pathways. But the universe of knowledge is just too big. You can't capture everything. And even a subject like climate science, Luis tells me there's so many permutations, and you can do courses everywhere. So it's really up to us to self-curate, right? Self-curate. Whether it's negative interest rates or the power of drones or platform economics or genetics, which is extremely important to underwriting and those who work in life insurance or reinsurance, like biostatistics. And there's so many interesting areas, very different from the past. So I think the key thing for me, is to really continue to be curious and to learn. And there are so many interesting stuff, right? And once you start learning, actually, it's quite easy. If you don't start, then it becomes we always feel that how come I do not know this? But once you start, and the work is going to impact you whether you're in a life insurance company or a pension scheme. Yeah? Negative interest rate is going to impact you, how you talk about it, how you market your products, climate risk. Anyone who in life insurance or investment or in pensions will have to understand climate risk and what's the latest modeling and how pandemics, right? So there are many things, and we can't put everything in the syllabus because it's not possible. But we are going to have more and more shorter programs, optional programs, adjacent to the formal program. But it's undergoing big change now, and we are quite keen to move it as quickly as we can. One of the big achievements is the fellowship in banking, which is very keen. I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to pass it to Louise now.
Yeah, so I spoke about this quite a lot in my presidential address, now available on all good IFoA websites near you. You can watch that. The Learning Change Programme, which Suche referred to, I think is really important. I mean, it's looking at the content of the core exams, but it's also thinking a lot about lifelong learning. There is no point relying on what you learn about when you're studying for the exams. I mean, I finished my exams a long time ago, what, over 30 years ago, you know. The stuff I learned then, really very little of it is relevant now. So you have to keep learning. And it's really important too that you take responsibility for your own learning, because only you can know what you're interested in, what your context is, what's going to be useful to you, and what you're going to enjoy learning. So the IFoA is doing, we're producing more, there's some great resources on both the banking microsite and the sustainability microsite, a whole lot of practical guides for actuaries in different fields on climate change, for example. We've got the data science, certificate in data science, which is a credential that's outside the qualification system. We're hoping to introduce one on sustainability. We're piloting that at the moment. And the CPD system has changed. You should all be aware that our CPD scheme no longer requires you to do so many hours per year. What you have to do is you have to take responsibility for your own learning. You have to have a reflective discussion with another with a fellow actuary during the year, or somebody else suitable, to think about what you've learned during the year, what you should be learning during the next year, what your focus should be. So it's very much, the emphasis is on keeping learning and taking responsibility for your own learning.
Great, thank you very much for sharing your experience, Louise and Suche. Thank you.